Hey guys, what's up? MadSeason here, back with another episode in my tip series for Classic World of Warcraft. This is number 3 in the series, where I show you a handful of random tips to make your time in Classic Azeroth a bit easier. Not to depress you too much, but let's start off with some death. Luckily though, in Azeroth, death isn't as permanent, and you can actually use it to your advantage. There are a handful of items and spells that you can use to kill yourself, which saves you that standard 10% durability reduction you get when you die. First is exclusive to Warlocks, and that's their Hellfire spell. In addition to dealing some area of effect fire damage to all nearby enemies, it deals damage to you as well, and it can indeed kill you if you don't have the health to spend. Fortunately for you though, death through Hellfire doesn't trigger the durability hit, so have this and life tap at the ready for when things go south, and save yourself some gold. As I said though, there do also exist some items that any class can use, and those are the Dark and Demonic Runes. They function similar to the life tap spell. You get some mana in exchange for life, and if you use it at a low enough health level, it will indeed kill you with no loss to durability, even if you don't use mana. In that case, it'll just deal damage to you. The Dark Runes you get from enemies located inside the Skullman's dungeon, and the Demonics you get from elite demon enemies located throughout the game, so always keep these handy to save yourself some gold. The Demonic Runes, if you may have noticed, are bind on pickup, so it's definitely a better alternative to selling them, but the Dark Runes, however, aren't soulbound, and can fetch a pretty penny on the auction house, depending on your economy, so you may choose to sell those ones instead. And next up, we have another handy macro, this time for hunters. This was passed to me recently, so I thought I'd share it, but as a hunter in Classic, you'll find that you have a bunch of pet management abilities. Call pet, dismiss pet, mend, revive, feed. This is a handy macro that combines all of these into just one button. Just bind it to any free key. I'll be using X in this example. So if your pet is out, you just hit X to feed. You can either manually click food in your inventory, or just control click at the end of this macro to have that done automatically. You can hit Control X to dismiss your pet, and then Alt X to also mend it. And if your pet isn't out, hitting X will just summon it, and if it's dead, you just hit Alt X to revive it. It's really efficient actually, and it saves you a bunch of keybinds, which is super valuable as a hunter in Classic since you have so many spells and abilities. I'll have it linked in the description for you. And next up, we have some skips. Eventually, you'll need to switch continents for quests or weapon training, and for the Alliance, the run from Ironforge to Menethil Harbor was particularly brutal if you were low level. Night Elves have that infamous death run from their starting hub to Ironforge. There do exist some skips though. First, from Ironforge to Menethil, you want to head all the way west here near Gnomeregan and find this mountain range. It doesn't look like it, but you can climb up here, and heading north along this path, if you jump to your death right here and release Spirit, you'll be teleported to the Spirit Reser right near Menethil Harbor. And from here, you just Spirit Res and just walk right in. There also exists a skip from Menethil to Ironforge. From the docks, you just want to head west and swim for quite a ways. This footage is sped up of course, and it takes about 6 minutes, and you want to keep going until you reach this spot on the map. Just stay near the land and keep an eye out for snow on your minimap. And next, you just want to drown yourself in the water right here. If you release, you'll be teleported to the Kharanos Spirit Healer, and from there, it's just a short walk to Ironforge. The negative with this method is that you miss the Thelsamar flight path that you'd pass just going the normal way, but the positive is that you don't die 100 times from crocodiles and orcs, and it saves a bit of time. Even more if you happen to catch the boat right here and jump off in transit. I did time it. The drowning method takes about 12ish minutes from Menethil to Ironforge, and the death run method is about 20 minutes with no deaths. So realistically, if you're a lower level, you should probably add about 10 more minutes to account for all the deaths. So, it's a bit of saved time and frustration for a flight path. It really depends on your preference. And another super simple but handy one can be found right here in Stormwind. Oftentimes, you'll want to head to Goldshire for some erotic role-playing just outside the city, and normally you'd want to go all the way through the city, but with some careful jumping, you can just hop on this barrel and then stick to the wall and go along this ledge right outside to save yourself some precious seconds. You can also save some time through death warping, more useful for low level characters. One of the things with Classic is that there are very few spirit healers. Usually they're near the hub, so oftentimes it can be advantageous to die intentionally and then spirit res back if your Hearthstone is on cooldown or something. Again, this is really only useful for newer characters since they don't get resurrection sickness until level 10, and since you're replacing your gear so quickly, durability really isn't a huge issue. And another tip is that you can die in command by going into your help menu and then clicking the character stuck button. Your character will just commit Sudoku. It's useful if there happen to be no enemies around you. The Warlock's Curse of Recklessness is a criminally underrated spell, and there's some nifty things that you can do with it. Reading the tooltip, it says that it increases melee attack power of enemies, but it also makes them ignore fear and horror effects. Fear is typically a risky crowd control in dungeons because you're always in danger of the mob running into another pack of enemies, but you can control it a bit with this curse. You just cast fear, and if you get a bad roll, bounce between Recklessness and another curse to override it until the mob runs in a safe direction. It's still probably a last resort type of situation, but it gives you a bit more control, and it could save the group. The Paladins and Warlocks, as you probably know, get special exclusive mounts. The Paladins get the Warhorse and Charger, and the Warlocks get the Fellsteed and Dreadsteed. That's all well and good, but they do have a downside, and that's the fact that they're technically spells and that they cost mana. If you get interrupted while casting it, you're locked out of that school of magic. Holy for Paladins and Shadow for Warlocks. And what's more, since they're spells, they also interrupt your mana regeneration. You may know about the 5-second rule, where if you don't cast anything for 5 seconds, your mana starts to regenerate, so this breaks that. And also cast slows, such as the Curse of Tongues and Mind-Numbing Poison, will also slow down the cast time of these mounts. Because of all of this, the more serious PvPers will forgo these exclusive mounts and just pick up normal ones. It's something to consider if you're the super min-maxer type. And lastly, for number 10, we have Jousting. There are many weapons of many varying speeds in Classic. The slowest in the game is 4.0, and because of this, an important skill that you need to learn as melee is Jousting. You go in, and you get a hit when your swing is ready, and then you kite away until you're ready for the next one. It's essential to master for both PvE and PvP for slow heavy-hitting melee classes such as the Warrior, the Paladin, or Enhancement Shaman. It gives you a huge edge compared to the non-jousters, and it'll win you many fights. For this, you're going to want a swing timer. You don't get one by default, but there are plenty of add-ons to choose from. I'll have my favorite one linked in the description for you. And that's about it. There are 10 more tips and tricks for you. A pretty short one overall, but this is just a random little series that I like to return to every once in a while. As always, it's more aimed for beginners, but hopefully you learned something new from it nonetheless. Like it if you liked it, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Farewell for now, mortals. We hope you enjoyed today's video. See you again soon.